Now, I'm not sure of all the detailed laws on crying, but I do feel like it is too early in the morning to cry. However, hello, so it's bank holiday weekend.
The bank is closed, so let's just close everything else too.
Everybody else is celebrating our unelected overlord, the Queen. And I am indoors. It's raining, I'm testing positive for COVID still, but I feel on top of the world, totally fine. So what else is there to do than set myself an arbitrary, completely out of my comfort zone task? Have I ever made a dress before? No. Did I just spend loads of money on fabric without actually having read anything about making a dress before? Yes. As you know on this channel, I'm always talking about finding new ways to engage with fashion and have fun with what you wear without going down the route of fast fashion. And one of the actions on that journey for me has been teaching myself to sew. During lockdown, I bought a child's sewing machine and I started trying to randomly teach myself to sew. There's a video about that up here if you'd like to catch up. But essentially the things I have made since then have been a plethora of scrunchies, some masks, a rice bag or two, one very failed jacket that is incredibly ill-fitting and is falling apart in my wardrobe as we speak, and a curtain, a lined curtain, which I'm actually quite proud of, but I have never made a dress before and I'm really, really excited. We're going to be using a template from an online creator called DIY Daisy. She gives away these kind of patterns and instructions for free, and the point of them is that they're supposed to be easy beginner patterns and they're supposed to be really low waist. This is what the template for this dress I'm going to be making looks like. This is what I want it to look like. Stay tuned to find out what monstrosity I make instead. Let me show you my plans and then I'm going to show you the fabric. So this is my initial interpretation of Daisy's pattern. It's really good because the only two measurements you really need to do on your own body is your arm bust, which is basically the circumference of you at the boob level when your arms are there. So it's not like you measuring your boobs, you're measuring like your whole body around your boobs. And then you just have to like measure how long you would want the skirt. That's from here to here, that's literally it. So great for that you don't have to like measure your whole body and start knowing about measurements. However, this was the dream, but I realised maybe this is a difference in our countries because she's in Australia. In the UK, when we buy a meter's worth of fabric, the measurement from here to here, this because you'd measure here to here to buy a meter of fabric, from here to here is slightly shorter. So I ended up with a piece of material like this. So instead, I reimagined all the pieces and reshuffled them so that I planned to put it out on my piece of material like this. The only adjustments I had to make was to make the skirt a little bit shorter. Saucy, no problems with that. And as you can tell, my GCSE maths was lacking a little bit. So this makes it look like it was complicated. It wasn't complicated. I am just incredibly rusty when it comes to numbers. Letters, I can do. Literacy, I'm good. Numeracy, absolutely So this is what I cut out. As you can see from these clips, I laid out all the fabric, I cut it up, I was very well behaved, I was very good. However, I have already made my first error. This is the fabric that I chose. It's amazing, look at it. But I got so excited by how much I love this fabric that I forgot that I had read somewhere that you are supposed to pre-wash your fabric. When you get a new piece of fabric, before you sew it or cut it up, you're supposed to put it through the wash so that if any shrinkage does occur, it happens before you sew it so you can still make sure it fits. I didn't do that, so I did it afterwards. However, that has resulted in a little bit of fraying. I think I kind of got away with it. I'm just gonna make my seams slightly slimmer, but I did a naughty. Sorry to the sewing gods. I'm gonna keep documenting all of my mistakes I'm going to make in this project because there will be many, and the whole point of this video isn't to show you how to make a dress, it's to show you that you're allowed to make mistakes and try, and even a bumbling English graduate like me can make something that at least covers your body and makes it legal for you to walk outside. Right, the next thing we're gonna do is iron all this fabric gently, and then I might be daring enough to get the pins out. Let's see. So I've discovered what we're gonna call error 2 of question mark. You know how I said I hadn't pre-washed the fabric? Well, I just got really confused with my measurements because the material didn't seem to be there. The material that I cut didn't seem to be there. And then I realised, as every internet forum warned me, that the fabric has definitely shrunk by, and I kid you not, 8 centimeters. Experienced sewers tell me below whether that's normal, but god damn it, I'm lucky that this is supposed to be a loose fitting dress, because I don't know how that's going to affect everything, but I don't have time to care. This may be fast becoming a bodycon dress. Let's find out. Okay, so I just spent another 20 minutes trying to fix the first problem, because when I shrunk the fabric, it didn't all shrink equally, so some of the lengths didn't really add up. I didn't have a right angled ruler, so I just, in classic form, used books and trimmed off the excess, so who knows what size those pieces are now, but at least they're equal. That's maybe that isn't the main thing, but what have I done? The last thing we need to do before we actually start sewing the dress, yes, we're still not at that stage yet, is making something called bias binding. Now, I did not know what that was when I looked at the instructions, and I looked it up and I watched several videos and it became quite confusing, but I think I now understand it, so I'm going to attempt to explain it to you. So when you have a piece of fabric like this, say, the weave, so like the threads that make up a piece of material, go like this and then like this, okay? So it stretches a little bit this way and a little bit this way, but not very much. If you stretch it this way though, a bigger stretch happens. I thought I'd use this mesh fabric so it's a bit more obvious. Okay, so it stretches like this, it stretches like this, but if you stretch it this way, it really stretches. All is well in fabric land until you need to cut something like a collar that goes like this. So the threads are ending on these corners here and here, exposing the gaps between the threads and making it vulnerable to fraying. Not only fraying, but kind of stretching out. Like if you pulled this over your head loads of times, it might start coming apart and wrinkling and getting all misshapen. So sewing's answer to this is lining things like collars like this with material in the pattern but slightly off. The material that's used for this is cut on the diagonal, or the bias. See, we're getting it. So you cut it at an angle, and when you sew it, it means that it stretches at an angle on the bias. So you're free to pull this over your head and have a little dance, do a little yoga in it, and you're not gonna fuck it up. That, on paper, sounds like a great idea. It also, however, sounds like a lot of work if you have to make the binding yourself, which I am going to do because I'm isolating and I'm not allowed to go out there and get some. So because this is an incredibly efficient pattern, this is the only bit of excess fabric I have. If I cut it lengthways, I'll have a really long piece of fabric, but if I do what I need to do, which is cut it along the bias diagonally, I'm gonna have loads of really short strips. I'm gonna do that because I think it will look sick, and doing bias binding sounds like a very good idea, but I'm not excited about it. Let's see how this goes. I also don't have like a 45-degree angle ruler, but I think that if I just do this, then it's like the same thing. Surely that's 45 degrees, right? Okay, I'm vlogging from the floor as a visual representation of how I'm feeling right now. I've just finished my first round of bias binding, and I can't express to you what a mindfuck that was. First, you're trying to make one continuous line of stretchy fabric that's got the grain the same way, right? You don't have like a long line. First, I accidentally sewed the strips like this. Then I sewed the strips inside out, so the seam would have been on the wrong side. So I had to unpick it all. And then, I know if you don't know about sewing, you don't care, but I need to tell you. Bias binding is supposed to be like this, right? You have to have these flaps that make a tape. Now, every tutorial I watched had this thing called a bias binder maker or something, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't need that, I'll just do it with my hands. It's taken me literal hours to iron this evenly, to the point where I got on the internet straight away and ordered myself a bias. They're like 90p, but I guess in some ways that's a good thing. I think when you're picking up a new hobby and you're not sure what accessories you have, I think the best thing to do is try and do it without it and then see if it's a necessity. But let me save you some time now. Bias binder makers, necessity. I do understand why people just pre-buy their binding, but I do think this wasted way less fabric. That's good, at least, I guess, if I was gonna comfort myself in any frickin' way. Okay, let's actually try and make the dress now, shall we? Let's begin. Let's begin. Let's begin. It's the next day and this morning's task is to cut a neckline. This is supposed to be the top of the dress and the idea is to cut a neckline here. But because there's no like printable pattern, what Daisy suggests is just finding a top in your wardrobe that you already like the neckline of and tracing that, which I like. It sounds like there's less room for things to go wrong, she says. So, because the fabric that I'm using isn't very stretchy, it's cotton and it's quite firm, I need to find a top that's like that as well, because if I just based it on this top, that wouldn't make sense because I pull this over my head all the time. That's why it fits. Maybe this? This is when you realise I have a lot of stretchy clothes. Oh, okay, this top I think is the closest we're gonna get. It does have a clasp in the back, so it's easier to get over your head. But I think if I trace this wide apart and then trace that same on the back, I don't think that will look weird, and that will definitely fit over my head. Okay, I don't know what mistake we're on now. But I've just been pinning the neck so I can put the binding on it. And I've just looked up some instructions online and I've realised I've pinned the whole thing backwards. Do you understand how long this took? This took at least one Katie Melloware album. That's how long it took. It's fine, I'm gonna repin. I'm gonna repin, everything's okay. Now, I'm not sure of all the detailed laws on crying, but I do feel like it is too early in the morning to cry. However, I've just been trying to sew this collar and I was so concentrated on trying to get the stitches really, really tight that I was shoving extra fabric under the needle without realising. So I don't know if you can see, but I've scrunched some of the fabric into the collar and I'm gonna have to unpick the whole thing. She is born. That looks like a dress to me. I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm on my way from misery. Okay, let's run off that adrenaline. This is the hemmed neckline. Very professional, if I do say so myself. And now we're gonna try and attach the sleeves. So the sleeves at the moment are just mere rectangles. In the instructions it tells me to gather them straight away. Gathering literally just means doing really wide stitches and then scrunching it up so it ruffles. But I was thinking, and I don't want to go rogue in my first foray into proper sewing, but I was thinking once it's ruffled and scrunched up, surely it's going to be really hard to hem. So I went a little bit rogue and I hemmed the sleeves already. It told me to do it at the end, but I was like, I feel like if I do that now it might be easier. Let's see if I regret that entirely, but we're gonna do some gathering and in theory make these into sleeves. Okay, we've got something. Nothing's attached yet, but the sleeves are there. I made two more errors. Ding ding, just call me Ernie errors. One is that I'd gathered this fabric with two threads and then I attached them to the top, but I didn't attach, are those threads supposed to come out? Who knows? Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies. I didn't attach it tightly enough, so one of the gathered threads that I used to gather the fabric is showing here, but because it's not actually vital anymore, it's done its job, it's gathered, I'm just gonna unpick that and then leave it because it's still attached. I don't really see, I think that's gonna be fine. And then the other thing was that the knob, this knob, forgot to change that knob on the sewing machine because when you gather stuff you have to make really big stitches, and when you're actually stitching something together that you want to stay together for a while, it's like really small stitches. So one of the arms is attached with rather large stitches, but it still seems fine, and I'm actually just gonna leave it because I'm feeling confident and I can't bother to unpick it. But again, that's something that now I've done it, I'll probably never do that again. I'll probably always check my stitch width before starting a new stage. So next we're gonna gather the skirts. I learned from the sleeves that gathering is incredibly boring, but that's okay. I've got a really good audiobook. Actually, let me show you the audiobook I'm listening to. It's called The Library of the Unwritten, and it's about a library in hell that is full of the books that people never finished writing while they were alive, and they've like categorized them, and it's about a librarian where one of the books goes missing and chaos ensues, much like this room right now. So let's listen to some chaos while we cause some chaos, but I do feel like we're on the home stretch. This makes me feel like we're on the home stretch, even if it's an illusion. Okay, this is probably the most frustrated I've been so far. Oh, that's how I feel. Oh. I was trying to sew the frill to the straight bit of fabric, but I didn't smooth out the straight bit of fabric before I started sewing. So I've got this lip that's just appeared, and it basically means I'm gonna have to unstitch all of this just because I didn't smooth the fabric out before I started stitching, and there's just so much fabric there that I didn't notice. And we can fix this, but I'm getting, this is like I've been doing this for like 5 hours. What the fuck? Okay, this is what we've got. I spent a lot of time trying to fix my mistake, and I've decided to just put it at the back of the dress. And it just means that maybe it won't be quite even at the back. Considering the weight of the mistake, I think I got away with it okay. Like, it's still gonna look like a dress. So this is what we've got at the moment. Just some saucy slits at the side. The only thing I have left to do really is sew up the whole of the side. So I'm sewing the whole way up the sleeve, down the armpit, across the bum, and down to the knees in one big swooping line. That's the plan, at least. So I'm just gonna pin this, I'm gonna sew it, and then we're gonna do the reveal. I am so tired. It is, what time is it? I've been sewing since 10 and it's now almost 4. And I must have done at least 4 hours yesterday, and then there was cutting out the fabric. So I think I'm just gonna sew this and then have a massive Yorkshire pudding. And then we'll reconvene tomorrow and reflect on the experience. But right now, I'm so freaking tired. Okay, so it is the next day. Here's that big reveal you've all been waiting for. Okay, while you all bask in my genius, let me just list a few of the things I was thinking about last night that I learned. One, on a very basic level, I learned to bind. I was really excited about that, very proud of it. I'm now very annoyed that this morning these binder makers arrived, so I'm never gonna have to go through that binding experience again, but I think it was worth doing. A character building moment, if you will. I learned to gather. I've never gathered before, and as somebody who loves a flouncy skirt, that seems essential if I'm gonna get any joy out of this hobby. I learned the hard way why you shouldn't hem first. You know how I hemmed everything first before gathering it? Yeah, that was a mistake. It was a mistake because unless you are a very precise seamstress and the way you attach one piece of clothing to another is completely equal the whole way round, you probably will end up with a slightly uneven skirt. It didn't matter so much for the sleeves because obviously these might be different lengths, but I don't know, human arms are different lengths as well, so nobody would really be able to tell, and they're separate. But when you're attaching 2 bits of fabric together to make one skirt and they're slightly different lengths, that's a bit awkward. I managed to zhuzh it a bit, so it did end up kind of straight, but if you come too close, you might notice it's a little bit wonky. I learned, and I kind of knew this, but it really sunk into my bones this time, that sewing is an art and a skill, and it's really shatteringly tiring. The amount of like close work, the brain power, the logistics, the maths, it's a job. And if I hadn't already given up fast fashion, I think this experience would have made me do it. I think I probably spent about 12 hours on this dress, and it's such a simple design. It's literally 6 rectangles. Obviously I'm a beginner, so even if we halved that time, or maybe like put a bit more in it, if it was a bit more of a fancy dress, the kinds of dresses I used to buy from fast fashion, we're still talking an 8 to 10 hour day. If people are gonna live above the poverty line, live with some kind of dignity, we're talking at least £150 a day, excluding fabric. This fabric in total cost me £18, so the fabric alone was probably equal to a fast fashion dress without the labor. This one was admittedly like used a lot more fabric than maybe other dresses. This was 3 meters, but because it's also a very low waist design, this is all the fabric that was left over, this tiny handful that I can probably use to stuff draft excluders or something, and then this very usable strip that I could make into a matching mask if I was feeling fancy, or maybe a headband, I'm not sure, but this bit of fabric definitely isn't going to go to waste. And I also learned that whilst this was a really fun challenge, I definitely would have enjoyed it more had I split it up over like maybe like 1 or 2 hours every evening for a week, which is good to know. If I was going to change anything about the dress, well, frankly, I'm kind of in love with it. This is exactly the kind of style I feel really comfortable in. The sleeves are so magic. I love how extra it is a little bit in the way it's cut. It just has like a lot of drama. a lot of twirling circles, which is the kind of dress equivalent of turning circles in cars. You want a good turning circle in an automobile, you want a good twirling circle in a good dress. I'm so happy with it. I got to pick a fabric I'm totally in love with, I got to pick a neckline that I'm comfortable with, and in general I'm really happy that I did it, even though I made loads of mistakes. If I was going to alter it in any way, I would definitely go back and zigzag hem these stitches on the inside of the skirt, because I don't want them to fray, and that might be a bit more professional. I love these tulip sleeves, but they might be a bit hard to get into jackets and coats, and as I live in the UK, that's kind of an essential. So I might put some elastic in these sleeves at some point and make them into like poofy cottagecore sleeves. But I love them how they are as well, so who knows. And then finally, this is such a comfy, boxy fit, which is obviously how it's designed, but it still is quite big on me, considering I already lost like centimetres and centimetres to my washing dilemma. So I may take it in slightly here, or do some darts under the boobs. What do we think? Do we like it boxy and arty, or do we think like a little cinch would give it a little bit more of an interesting silhouette? Let me know below, because God knows I don't know what I want. If you would like more videos on clothes and relationships with clothes and working that out and having fun with it, then you might want some of these videos here. If you fancy moving on from clothes and watching something completely different, here are some other videos I think you might like. This video and this whole channel was made possible by the Gumption Club, and if you would like to see something else that I made, this is my poetry collection. It's coming out on the 7th of July. It's written with people who don't like poetry in mind. It's filled with doom, it's filled with glitter, it's filled with being in your 20s and your 30s at this time of the world's life. And you can pre-order it down there. Thank you for watching. Frog Snog out.